Hello and welcome to Paris Games here on France 24, our daily Olympic roundup. Over the next 25 minutes, I'll be bringing you through all the latest from day 6 here in the French capital. Well, let's start with some of the stories of the day, and it's a no-go in the sailing. The first medal races were postponed in Marseille because of a lack of wind, leaving athletes broiling in the heat on the water for more than 2 hours before sending them back to the marina. Both the men's and women's skiff were scheduled to hold their finals today, but were called off shortly after 5 p.m. at local time. They've been rescheduled for Friday, but the wind forecast remains a concern. Felix Lebrun is the star of the show once more. France's table tennis superstar wins again. The 17-year-old held his nerve to beat his Taiwanese opponent in a decisive set earlier on today. He's now through to the semi-finals and has a chance to become the first Frenchman ever to win a table tennis individual gold. He was cheered on by a raucous crowd, including his brother at Porte de Versailles. He'll now take on Fan Zhenjiang in the semi-final, the world number 2. Well, let me bring in our regular consultant, Karim Baldet. Karim, we talked about Felix Lebrun yesterday.
Yeah.
We have to talk about him again
Obviously.
Today. Into the semi-finals.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult, though, because he's playing the highest-rated player left in the tournament.
Yeah, and yes, and it will be the last Chinese there, because this is very particular, because usually China is a country of table tennis, but this year the number 1 seed was out of the competition earlier than expected. So Fan Zhenjiang is the only one remaining, and it will be very important. And for Felix Lebrun, that will be another huge battle. We saw his match today, his quarterfinal today. That was so tricky, neck on neck with his opponent for the whole game.
And the same the game before. I mean, that went down to a decisive set as well. He's keeping us on our toes, isn't
Yeah, he knows how to keep his cool despite this huge crowd for him.
And his age, 17 years old.
Yeah, 17 years old, but he seems to know how to cope with the pressure. And now that he's the only Lebrun brother still in the competition, there is more pressure on him to go up to the end. And yesterday you told me if he will be in the gold medal at the end. So yeah, we're getting closer and closer. And if he keeps that way, he should be the Olympic champion.
If he were to go on to win gold, what would that do for participation in table tennis in France? Because it is still a fairly niche sport, and France haven't traditionally been, world beaters at it. Do you think that could change things, having a superstar in a kind of niche sport like table tennis?
It has already changed in reality since the Lebrun brothers came into some famousness in the last years. Some table tennis clubs say that it was fold 3 or 4 in terms of people getting to the clubs to sign up, to register, to try to practice table tennis. So this hype surrounding table tennis is already on, and it's going to be bigger if Mr. Lebrun, Felix Lebrun, will win that Olympic title, because for the first time ever, live on the national broadcasters such as France Télévisions for the Olympics, they will show how big is table tennis and how magnificent is that sport, because you have to be focused on every point and you have to be so quick. I admire that, because we all played ping pong or table tennis for the pleasure, but no way to play at this level, and that was very impressive. So I suppose that there will be more and more people interested in even in the future.
Well, let's go from table tennis to just tennis now, as world number 1, Iga Swiatek is out of the women's singles. The overwhelming favourite for an Olympic gold medal was left in tears after her stunning loss to China's Zheng Qinwen in the semi-finals at Roland Garros. Her first defeat there since 2021. By making the final, Zheng is the first Chinese man or woman to reach an Olympic singles gold medal match, bettering the run of Li Na, who finished 4th in the women's event in Beijing. Karim, let me bring you back in on this. It's a shock. It's a massive shock, isn't it? I mean, no one expected Swiatek to go out at any stage, really. She was the overwhelming favourite, as I said, for gold.
Yeah, and she was the obvious favourite because she's the queen of Roland Garros for the last 3 years. 25 matches straight over today, and that was unexpected, and especially because the opponent wasn't at her level, and she dominates the WTA circuit as well all year long. So it was very surprising to see her missing the gold medal today, and this was another upset because when I looked at Coco Gauff's defeat very early into the tournament, this is a massive blow to see Iga Swiatek out of the competition. So now it's an open table, I think, to see who's going to win this gold medal in tennis.
Let me ask you about tennis in the Olympics, because some people say it shouldn't be there, like golf, like football, that have bigger events than the Olympics. Obviously, golf has the Masters, football has World Cup, Champions League. But it does give us a chance to see incredible doubles pairings, for example. Nadal, Alcaraz, of course, they're still out. Andy Murray playing with Dan Evans, his last ever tournament, that's just got underway. So what's your stance on it? Should tennis be in the Olympics?
Well, since tennis decided to be into the Olympic program, well, it's a 50-50 in my mind, because on the one hand, you can say that, as you say, there are huge stars and such good stories to tell about in Olympic tennis. But still, this is another world. I mean, and that was the case for French players, if we can talk about it a little bit, because they are out of competition in every single competition in doubles and singles, men and women. And the French national director said, Ivan Ljubicic, said that wasn't prepared enough, which is quite weird because France is a host nation. So it means that the Olympic tournament of tennis is not as huge as Grand Slams, Roland Garros, Wimbledon, the US Open, or the Australian Open. And that's still the case. Tennis is quite recent in the history of the Olympics. I think the first time was in Seoul in 1988. So it means that it's quite recent. And when we look at some winners, you have great winners, obviously, but some of them are not so known, even like medalists. Well, it's a 50-50 on my mind to answer to your question.
Yeah, okay. Well, we've seen a great atmosphere at these games outside of the events, helped by La Villette, where lots of countries have their so-called houses. Everyone knows about Club France, but there are lots of other nations represented. In fact, we can join our very own James Andre, who is at the Brazilian house for us. James, what's the atmosphere like where you're at?
Well, the atmosphere is electric, simply because we've just lived an intense moment of sport here, when indeed Rebecca Andrade, who is the Brazilian gymnastics star, took Simone Biles head-on in the women gymnastics. Now, the American prevailed, of course, but here the cheering, the supporting of the Sao Paulo gymnastics stars was absolutely amazing. Each time she came on the screen, we had everybody yelling here. When Simone Biles came up to do her routine, well, indeed, people were booing here. Some people were saying, fall down, fall down. And then eventually, yes, well, indeed, Simone Biles got the gold, but indeed, Rebecca Andrade got the silver, and that made people here very, very happy indeed. Now, yes, this is one of these houses that are scattered across the Parc de la Villette. This is a 55-hectare park in northern Paris. Here you have the House of India, the House of Slovenia, the House of Slovakia. There are 15 in all nations that have decided to hold places like this, where you have a giant screen where supporters can meet up. We're speaking to people who've flown in especially for the Olympics from Brazil. One woman from Rio de Janeiro saying that since the Rio Games she would not miss any other Olympic Games. She said she's been watching since she was a kid, but actually being at the Olympics and feeling it in her flesh is a different sensation. So yes, houses like this one, which means that the supporters of various countries can meet up. Obviously, it's the national broadcaster that has the rights for the Olympic Games, which is shown on the big screen, so you get more of the sports of your own country broadcasted. And of course, the whole point is to live through these exceptional moments together. And of course, also, well, the athletes themselves do turn up in places like this to meet their fans.
Yeah, and some of these houses have real symbolism, don't they, James? Ukraine has its own house for the first time at the Games. You were there just a little bit earlier on, weren't you?
Yes, absolutely. I was there this afternoon. Now, Ukraine's house, Olympic house, was actually paid for by the French government and the French sports ministry. It was obviously a very strong gesture on behalf of the French to create this house. Of course, for the Ukrainians, it's been a very tough job to get the athletes out here in Paris to take part in these Olympics. 140 athletes have come in, flown in, and indeed we spoke earlier on to the spokesperson for the Ukrainian sports minister. This is what he had to tell us.
We have a really huge team of heroes. It's 140 athletes competing and representing Ukraine on this year Olympics. All of them are heroes, and they show to the world their will to win. And for us, it's the winning that we are here, because when the full-scale invasion started, nobody believes that Ukraine will stand, and even that Ukraine will compete on Olympics. No one believes. But Ukrainian will to win proved that Ukrainian stands, and we are here, and our enemies are not here, and we really appreciate it.
James Andre, thank you very much. Thank you very much, James Andre. Looks like an incredible atmosphere there. Hopefully we'll see you doing a little bit of samba dancing later on as well. Well, let's look at volleyball now, where Italy's men beat Egypt 3-0 on Tuesday. A comfortable win for the men in blue. Their next match will see them take on Poland on Saturday. Earlier this week, our reporters caught up with members of the side who gave us an insight into the difficulties of competing at an Olympic level.
The Olympic Games, it will be a difficult tournament for all of teams. I think that it will be a balanced competition because there are a lot of teams that can claim this gold. So we stay focused on our volleyball. We don't think about the pressure. We don't think about the favorite. We have to think about volleyball. So this is our goal.
Certainly, playing in Europe is something extra special. We get a lot of support, a lot of fans, so we expect a lot. We're happy, yes.
Let's go back to last night, 3 days after his victory in the 400-metre medley. Léon Marchand landed 2 more Olympic gold medals in the pool, breaking 2 Olympic records in the process. It's a feat unmatched even by the greatest swimmer in history, Michael Phelps. Oliver Farry has a recap of a memorable night.
Shortly before 9 p.m. Paris time, Léon Marchand won the Olympic 200 metres butterfly, sending thousands of French supporters delirious. 90 minutes later, Marchand wrote himself into the history books with another medal in the 200 metres breaststroke, becoming the first swimmer in more than a century to win 2 individual titles in one day, a feat that even the great Michael Phelps could not manage.
It's incredible. He's out of this world. It was one hell of a challenge, and boy, did he pull it off.
Leon for president, Leon is king. There was the Lion King, now there is King Leon. He made history. We will remember this all our life. It's once in a lifetime. Amazing.
With the whole country behind him, Marchand topped it off by breaking the Olympic record in each race. It's one of the greatest exploits in the history of the Games, and even the man himself found it hard to process.
It's insane. It was already crazy enough to be in 2 finals. I had a very good race plan for the 200-metre butterfly. It's insane to experience as a Frenchman. I couldn't be happier.
But there's no time for Marchand to rest on his laurels. He's back in the pool on Thursday for his next race, the 200 metres medley. And few would bet against the 22-year-old from Toulouse, adding to his medal haul.
Yeah, we heard it there, Karim. Léon for president.
Yes!
I don't know if I'd go that far, but we have to talk about him. He's the face of these Olympics so far. What a night. We missed the first swim. We're actually on air during that first swim.
You missed it.
I
was looking at it like...
You were sneakily looking at it. But we got to watch the second one.
Yes.
What a night. I mean, where does he rank in the pantheon of French sporting greats? Surely he's already up there.
He's already at the top. And even other great swimmers such as Laure Manodou or Camille Lacour, who won Olympic medals or Olympic titles in the years 2000, can only say that Léon Marchand is the best. Why? Because he is the first Frenchman to collect all those individual gold medals. We thought that he would have a lot of medals, but gold medals. And the race yesterday, when he went back from nowhere in the last 50 meters to overthrow Christoph Nilik of Hungary, who was the world champion, that was just insane. And as we saw just early on with the people on the street, it was like as if France won the World Cup, for example, like everybody cheering in front of big screens.
To see an atmosphere like that for swimming, that's what the Olympics brings, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's the first time ever. And even if you look at TV ratings, for example, yesterday night on the French broadcast, so 13.5 million people watched it. That's a huge peak. It's even better than Usain Bolt in 2012 in London, and it's comparable to what we see in some soccer games. So it says a lot about the huge Marchand mania or hype about Léon Marchand, who can be the president, prime minister, whatever. We don't have any government right now in France, so maybe he can be prime minister. Who knows?
Well, one sport we haven't really touched on at these games so far is water polo. Karim, you were there earlier to watch France take on Australia. Hasn't started too well for the hosts, has it? Two losses for the men so far already.
Yeah, 2 losses and 1 win against Japan. But yeah, this afternoon that was a shame for France because they fought up to the very end. They were trailed by 3-4 goals at some point against Australia, and finally they went back, but that wasn't enough to complete a remontada, as we like to say in France. So yeah, now they are in a difficult situation because they have to win their 2 last games, and the next one will be against Serbia, the Olympic champions. So yeah, it's a very tricky situation for France in water polo.
I want to ask about a sport like water polo. Obviously, on TV, it's fairly easy to follow. It's well filmed and stuff. As a fan in the stands, for fans who are there, they maybe aren't particularly water polo fans, they're just there to see an Olympic event. Is it easy to follow?
Yes, it's quite easy to follow. That was my first time ever attending a water polo match, and I don't know a lot about the rules, but this is a kind of mix between handball and swimming. So if you know handball, I know that's not a huge sport in English-speaking countries, but if you know a bit about handball and you know about swimming, well, you can understand how it works. And this is only a question of technicalities, but for the rest, for the overall situation, you can understand it. And the aquatic center of Saint-Denis is quite small. It's smaller than expected, to be honest, because it's less than 4,000 seats, but you have a great view wherever you are in the stands. So yeah, the games, because there were 2 games this afternoon, it was very easy to follow as a sports fan, such as I am. And yeah, that was a great pleasure to see that. It's very physical under the water as well, because we don't see it, but they kick at each other sometimes.
Well, maybe, Karim, you're the bad luck omen for France. Your first ever French water polo match, and they lost, so French... maybe they'd rather you didn't come back.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I was unlucky with rugby sevens on Monday with the women's team, and now with water polo. I hope to bring some good moments for the French teams in the future.
Maybe just stay in the studio. Maybe it would be better.
Yeah, especially stay here.
The first gold medal of the day was won by Brian Pintado of Ecuador in the 20-kilometre race walk after he pulled away from the field over the final kilometre to capture gold. The women's event was won by China's Yang Jiayu, who led basically from start to finish. Athletes had to contend with the blazing sun in the French capital. Well, it's not over for race walking, as there's also a pairs event. It's an interesting discipline, and not that many people know too much about it. Luckily, we have Jenny Shin to explain it in more detail. For me, race walking is an art.
Invented in the 17th century in the United Kingdom, race walking is a particularly technical sport. For Ada Aravallo, it all comes down to coordination.
You have to add up all the movements of the arms, the legs, the pelvis to be synchronized and move forward.
Race walking is one of the most demanding disciplines in athletics. Luis Fernando Lopez, coach of the Colombian race walker and world champion of the 20-kilometer track in 2011, explains to us the secrets of success.
A lot of the momentum comes from the arms, a bit like in cross-country skiing. If I gain momentum with the arms, the pelvis moves forward. If the pelvis rotates forward, the step will be longer.
The golden rule of race walking: keep one foot in contact with the ground at all times, and the supporting leg must be straight when vertical. Over 20 to 50 kilometers of this atypical walking puts a strain on the body. Like many athletes, this other Colombian champion fell into the sport by chance.
At first I didn't like it. A month later I started training and became a national champion. Since then I've loved it.
Rochelle de Obata comes from Puerto Rico, but she trains in Bogota and is qualified for the 20-kilometer walk at the Paris Games. The introduction of a new mixed marathon relay walking event is stirring debate among athletes.
I don't have a pair. This is why I find this mixed relay event unfair for all the countries that don't have a tandem to present.
Colombia has 2 pairs qualified for this relay, an event announced less than a year before Paris 2024. But despite the short preparation time, they're optimistic. Racewalking has done well for the country in the past, a silver medal at the Olympics and 2 world titles.
I think that in Paris, if all goes well, we can be among the top 8 or 10.
But Ada Arevalo will not be a part of this year's story. He was forced to withdraw from the Paris Games after an injury in June.
Well, Simone Biles was back in action tonight, attempting to recapture the all-round gymnastics title. And of course, it's Simone Biles, so of course she did. Olympic champion once more, her 6th gold medal. Selena Sykes was lucky enough to be there for us. Selena, take us through it. A 6th gold medal for Simone Biles. How did she do it?
Leo, that was absolutely exceptional to witness here this evening at Bercy Arena. Simone Biles getting her 6th gold medal and taking back her all-around title 8 years after she won her first in Rio. She started off with the vault and it looked like she definitely meant business, pulling off her signature Biles to move on the vault to get a big score on her first apparatus. There was then a bit of a shakiness on the uneven bars as she had a rare mistake on that one that cost her a few points. It's very rare for us to see her get under 14, even if it is her weakest apparatus. It's the only final she's not qualified for in terms of separate apparatus. She knew then that she had to rely on her difficulties for the second half of the rotations, and that's exactly what she did. She's an absolute champion. She went onto the beam next, pulling off another one of her skills, a magical performance on the beam. She knew she had to deliver and she did it, and then a spectacular finale for the floor. She again was the one who closed out the session here at Bercy Arena. I've watched his floor routine 3 times now, Leo, at this Olympics, and every time it gives me goosebumps. It's absolutely exceptional to watch in person. The whole of Bercy Arena was up on their feet, and I think the other athletes knew beforehand that she'd done it. So we saw them congratulating her before the final score came in, a massive score of 15.066, which is very rare for a floor routine. She's an absolute champion, Simone Biles, and now she's added, of course, 1 more gold medal to that tally, and she has the chance to win quite a few more because she's also in the finals for 3 out of 4 apparatus. That is the beam, floor and vault. The twisties of 2021 in Tokyo look long forgotten here now at Bercy. She also becomes the first woman to retain an all-around title since the 1960s. That just shows how difficult it is to do in a very competitive sport. A quick mention for Brazilian Rebecca Adreda, who finished 2nd with the silver, a greater result for her as well. And Biles' compatriot, Sinisa Lee, getting the bronze, as she, of course, won 3 years ago this event. In the absence of Simone Biles, who will now definitely, if it wasn't already in doubt, Leo, is the absolute GOAT of gymnastics, the greatest of all time.
The GOAT of gymnastics, indeed. Selena Sykes, thank you very much. Well, let's finish with the photo of the day. This is Spain's Pau Echeniz. This is his reaction after competing in the men's kayak final of the canoe slalom competition. You can see the pure passion there. It was bronze in the end for the Spaniard, and you can see just how much the Games means to these athletes. Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of Paris Games. Thank you, Karim Balde. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time, 8:30 Paris time, with all the Olympic latest. Stay tuned for more world news on France 24 in just a few minutes' time.